Hi, this is Brad, and welcome to Brad English Podcast, your daily English listening podcast helping you speak English naturally. Welcome to what I truly believe is going to be one of the most productive hours you have ever spent with the English language. Today is a full shadowing and speaking session, and I want to use this time to take you through a rich range of real, natural, conversational English across four big areas of human life: your daily world, your work and learning, your relationships, and the wider world around you. Each section is designed to give you language that you can use immediately in real situations. Before we begin, I want to remind you of the most important rule of a shadowing session. You must engage your voice, not just your ears, your mouth, your breath. Your whole speaking apparatus needs to be active. If you are in a place where you can speak freely, please speak out loud. If you need to be quiet, whisper softly, but do not just listen. Listening alone builds comprehension. Speaking while listening builds fluency. The difference between those two outcomes is entirely determined by whether your voice is active. Let us begin. The language of daily life is the foundation of all conversational fluency, and it begins with the simplest and most intimate topic imaginable: your home. Your home is the space where you spend much of your life, and being able to describe it naturally and comfortably in English is a fundamental skill that opens many conversations. You might say, I live in a fairly small apartment, but I've worked hard to make it feel comfortable and personal, or my home is not very big, but what I love about it is the light. There is a big window in the living room that faces east, and in the morning it is filled with sunshine. These sentences do more than describe a physical space. They reveal your values, your aesthetics, and the things that bring you simple pleasure. Behobo, describing your neighborhood and the area around your home, brings another set of wonderfully natural English sentences into play. I live in a fairly quiet residential area, which I love because it is easy to relax when I get home, where residential means an area that is mainly housing rather than businesses or industry. Or, my neighborhood is quite lively. There are lots of cafes and small shops, and zainiki, and on weekends, the street outside my building gets quite busy with people. These sentences place you in a real, specific world, and that specificity is enormously valuable in English conversation because it gives the other person something real and concrete to respond to. The language of household routines and domestic life rounds out this section beautifully. Sentences like, I am quite a tidy person by nature. I find it hard to relax in a messy space. Or, I do most of my cleaning on Saturday mornings when I have more energy for it. Or, I have been trying to cook more at home recently because I want to eat more healthily, and I actually find cooking quite enjoyable once I get started, are all rich with natural English vocabulary and sentence structures. The phrase "once I get started" is a particularly useful expression that describes how the beginning of a task can feel harder than the task itself. And it is an expression native speakers use constantly. Moving from the external world of routines and spaces into the internal world of feelings and energy gives your English a deeper, more personal dimension that is essential for real human connection. Being able to speak about your inner life in English, not just what you do, but how you feel while you do it, is one of the hallmarks of true conversational fluency. A sentence like, I have been feeling a bit overwhelmed recently because there is a lot happening at once, but I am managing, is a perfect example of honest, mature, emotionally intelligent English. Overwhelmed means feeling like there is too much to handle, and I am managing is a wonderfully British phrase meaning you are coping, though perhaps not without effort. Energy levels are a constant topic in everyday English conversation, and perhaps because the pace of modern life leaves many people feeling stretched thin. Sentences like, I have been sleeping badly this week and I can really feel the difference in my concentration and my mood, or I feel at my best when I have had a proper rest and a good breakfast. Those two things make such a difference to how I function. Use language that is both honest and natural. Though the phrase make such a difference is an important one to know because it is used constantly in spoken English to emphasize how significant something is. The language of personal values and inner beliefs adds a philosophical depth to your English that lifts it well above the purely functional. Being able to say, I think what matters most to me is being genuinely present in the things I do, rather than just going through the motions, where going through the motions means doing something mechanically without real engagement or feeling, shows a level of English that many learners spend years working toward. Or more simply, I value honesty very highly in my relationships. I would rather hear a difficult truth than a comfortable lie. These sentences speak to who you are as a person, and they are the sentences that make people want to know you better. The professional dimension of English is one that carries enormous practical weight for most learners, and yet it is often one of the most anxiety-inducing areas. The good news is that the language of professional life, once broken down into its real components, is actually quite accessible and deeply learnable. The foundation of professional English is the language of tasks, deadlines, communication, and effort, and the sentences built from these foundations are clear, direct, and purposeful. A sentence like, I have been working on a fairly complex project recently that requires a lot of coordination between different teams, uses professional vocabulary like coordination and teams in a completely natural context. Speaking about effort and work ethic in English produces sentences that are both professionally impressive and personally authentic. I am the kind of person who finds it hard to leave a task unfinished. Once I start something, I want to see it through, where see it through means to follow something to its completion. Or, I work best when I have a clear goal and a realistic timeline. Vague objectives make it hard for me to focus, where vague means unclear and lacking in specific detail. These sentences demonstrate not just language ability, but professional maturity. And they are exactly the kind of sentences that make an excellent impression in any English-speaking workplace. And handling challenges and setbacks in professional language is another essential skill set. When things do not go according to plan at work, which they inevitably sometimes do not, I try to focus on solutions rather than getting caught up in frustration, where inevitably means it is impossible to avoid. Or, I made a significant mistake on a project last year and it was difficult, but it taught me more than most of my successes have. Shows the kind of honest, growth-oriented professional mindset that is highly valued in English-speaking work environments and that, expressed clearly in English, leaves a very strong impression. The language of learning and intellectual curiosity is some of the most beautiful and expressive English you can develop, because it reflects a living, growing mind that is genuinely engaged with the world. Being able to say, I have always been curious by nature. I find it very hard to let go of a question I do not understand the answer to, uses the phrase by nature to mean as an inherent personality trait, and it paints a vivid portrait of an intellectually alive person. Or, I have been trying to read more broadly recently, books outside my usual area of interest, because I think exposure to different ideas makes you think better. The language of self-development and personal growth has become increasingly important in professional and social English conversation, and having authentic, natural sentences in this area makes you an extremely interesting conversation partner. Sentences like, I have been working on being more patient with myself when I do not reach my own standards, because I think self-criticism, when it becomes excessive, it actually hinders rather than helps progress, where hinders means blocks or slows down, demonstrate a sophisticated level of emotional self-awareness expressed in beautifully clear English, even simpler but equally powerful. I'm trying to develop the habit of learning something new every single week. It does not have to be big, just something that was not in my mind before. The specific experience of learning English itself produces wonderfully authentic and relatable sentences that are perfect for conversations with other learners and with native speakers who are curious about your language journey. I've been working on my English for a while now. And the most surprising thing I have discovered is how much the language teaches you about the culture, as well as just the words. Or, some days learning English feels effortless and joyful, and other days it feels like pushing a boulder uphill, and I have learned to be kind to myself on both kinds of days. This last sentence, with its vivid pushing a boulder uphill metaphor, is the kind of expressive, memorable English that shows genuine linguistic fluency. The language of human relationships is perhaps the most emotionally charged area of English, and mastering it means going far beyond the simple vocabulary of family members and social activities. It means being able to articulate what you value in people, how relationships have shaped you, and what connection means to you personally. A sentence like, "I am someone who has a small circle of close friends rather than a large group of acquaintances." And I prefer it that way because deep friendship requires real investment, where acquaintances means people you know slightly but not deeply, and investment refers to the time and emotional energy you put into a relationship, is a beautifully constructed sentence that reveals genuine character. Speaking about what you appreciate in other people produces some of the warmest and most engaging English sentences imaginable. 1. The people I am drawn to are those who are genuinely curious about the world and who listen as much as they speak. I find that combination quite rare and extremely refreshing, where drawn to means naturally attracted toward. Or, I have enormous respect for people who are kind consistently, not just when it costs them nothing, but when kindness is actually difficult. These sentences demonstrate not just language ability, but genuine human thoughtfulness. And they are the kind of sentences that create real conversational connection across languages and cultures. Family language in English covers an enormous range of tones and emotions, from warm and celebratory to complex and nuanced. Being able to handle all of these tones is a mark of real fluency. My family has had its share of difficulties over the years, as most families do. But what I am most grateful for is that we have always managed to talk through things rather than let them fester, where fester means to become worse through being left unaddressed. Or more simply, my parents have been the biggest influence on my values and the way I approach the world. I see that more clearly the older I get. This kind of reflective family language is deeply human and universally understood. The language of culture and the wider world gives your English a breadth and generosity of spirit that elevates it from purely personal to genuinely universal. And it opens conversations with people from every background and every country. Being able to speak about other cultures with genuine curiosity and respect is one of the most valuable communication skills in the English language. A sentence like, "One of the things I find most fascinating about learning English is the access it gives me to so many different perspectives, voices, and ways of seeing the world that I would not have encountered otherwise," uses perspectives and encountered in completely natural contexts. Travel, whether real or imagined, produces magnificent English sentences. I have only traveled to a few countries so far, but each one has changed me in ways that are hard to fully articulate, where articulate means to express something clearly in words. Or, I think travel teaches you things that no book or documentary can fully replicate because it puts you physically inside a different reality and forces you to navigate it with all your senses engaged, where replicate means to reproduce or copy. Even aspirational travel sentences are valuable. There is a long list of places I hope to visit one day, and near the top of it is Japan, partly for the food, partly for the design aesthetic, and partly because the culture seems to balance tradition and modernity in a way that I find deeply compelling. The language of global awareness and cultural exchange rounds out this section with sentences that speak to the kind of open, connected, curious person that learning a new language tends to create. I think one of the greatest gifts of language learning is that it makes you more humble, where humble means aware of your own limitations and respectful of others, because it reminds you how much of the world you do not yet understand. Or, learning English has made me more interested in other cultures, not less. It is like opening one door leads you to discover 10 more doors you never knew were there. This last sentence, with its beautiful door metaphor, is the kind of expressive, original English that makes listeners stop and think. You have just completed 1 full hour of deep, rich, real English practice. We traveled through your daily world and your inner life, through the language of work and personal growth, and through the vast, beautiful territory of human relationships and global connection. Every sentence you engaged with today was chosen to be immediately useful in real English conversations. And every topic we covered was one that native English speakers talk about constantly in their daily lives. What I hope you take from this episode is not just a collection of sentences, but a feeling. The feeling of English being rich enough to hold your whole life inside it. Your routines, your values, your emotions, your ambitions, your relationships, your dreams. English can carry all of these things. And the more you practice expressing them, the more comfortable and natural that carrying will feel. You are building something real here, one session at a time, one sentence at a time. Come back to this episode often. Each time you return, you will find new things to notice and new sentences to make your own. Keep listening, keep speaking, keep going.